We are Aikido of Northampton, and you're listening to Valley Free Radio, 103.3 FM, WXOJLP Northampton.
This is Ruthie from Pedal People with a public service announcement. If you frequent downtown Northampton or Florence and you pass by the recycling and trash bins on the street, the public ones, I'm here to let you know that cups are not recyclable. No plastic cups, no paper cups, no styrofoam cups, no clear cups, red cups, blue cups, yellow cups, no insulated cups. Because if you put cups in the recycling bin, it means either I pick them out or someone at the sorting facility picks them out in Springfield, or it contaminates the whole load too much that the whole load is considered trash. Or if you can just bring your own cup altogether and not have disposable cups, that'd be even better. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your cooperation.
9 Volt Heart on WXOJ in Northampton brings you the best acoustic music every Saturday evenings from 5 to 7 p.m. My name is Ed Malachowski, and I host this Americana-based music program because I love this alternative country music. I focus the program on artists coming to our Pioneer Valley's venues, along with a host of local musicians as well. Expect in-depth interviews with the artists, both local and touring, as well as ticket giveaways to all the shows you want to see. Tune in to American Roots and String Music on 9 Volt Heart every Saturday from 5 to 7 p.m.
Plastic, silver, 9 Volt Heart.
The views and opinions expressed on WXOJLP are solely those of the original hosts of their respective programs. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of Valley Free Radio Incorporated, its volunteers, or any other hosts, guests, or programs on this station.
That is Classic Battle by Sam Spence. And this is Baker and Big D Sports Show with special guest Joe. And this is maybe an oxymoron in sports talk shows. It's an intelligent discussion of sports, which is often not seen. And one of the highest compliments, Matt and I started this show on, Valley Free Radio, and there's no sports show on this, and people sort of were a little bit hesitant to approve it, but they did. And then one of the compliments I've got is from a DJ who says, "I'm not a sports fan at all, but I like listening to your guys talk." And the other, Go ahead,
We're
Matt.
doing something good then, I guess, Daryl.
Yeah, we're doing something good. And also, Matt and I have had long discussions over many years when we shared a teacher's room. And we sort of, politics is something that we could discuss with each other, but probably anybody who loves to talk politics like I do finds it very difficult with most people to talk about. And so we thought we were safe starting a sports show, that there would be no politics involved. Now it's like, wow, it is. Politics are part of it.
Yeah, it's you can't get away from it. You can't get away from
Nope.
it. But hey, let's those of you listening, thank you. Happy 4th of July. Everybody stay safe out there. If you're, most towns are not obviously doing any fireworks celebrations, so be smart if you're doing anything, in your backyards. We don't need another, Jason Pierre-Paul blowing up his fingers or anything like that. So happy 4th of July. Be safe out there.
All right, and let me introduce Joe Caprero. Now, Joe is an old friend from back in WMUA days, and we did several sports shows together. And we also did them with Mark Berman, if you remember him, Joe. Who's become big in Boston talk radio. He's the Beatle. And so anyway, welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
Where you calling from? Or where you zooming from?
I am zooming from Portland, Oregon. I've been out here for about 2 years. It's I can't say enough good things about the city itself. It's, if you have to live in a densely populated place, this is one of my favorite parts of the country. As you know, Daryl, I've lived all over. This is my 13th state. But the circumstances we're in right now don't really require any of us to be in populated areas anymore. Right. So I'm considering getting myself out to the country somewhere. Maybe. Well,
now, and when do you get released from jail?
I got 3 to 5 left on my.
What do you do for work out there?
I've been freelancing now. After I left UMass, I went
freelancing as a writer, or
as a mostly multimedia stuff. I'm doing some podcasts, some websites, some graphics. After I left UMass, as you know, I went to Texas, got my master's down there in broadcast journalism. Then I went to Idaho for a few years, and I was the operations manager for a small TV station there. So I've kind of been on every side of the journalistic, media ball game. I've started in print like everyone else, and then I moved on to radio when I came to UMass, and then did some television, done some multimedia stuff.
Cool. All right. Well, there you go. So we all love sports. We all are good talkers, correct, Matt?
We can hold our own.
We're not short of words. So, Matt, I'll give you the opportunity to pick where you want to start today. First off, let me just say to Joe, it's been a challenge the last, say, 6 or 8 weeks of, what can we occupy an hour's worth of stuff talking about sports when there are no sports, but things are changing.
I think that's where, and this is kind of similar to the shows that you and I did on WMUA. Can I say WMUA?
Yes, you sure can.
Okay.
Yep.
Similar to the shows, we had a sports show, but we talked about both the bigger issues within sports and kind of peripheral issues outside of sports. So I'm pretty sure that's what you guys have been doing.
All right, Matt.
So like you said, you have no choice.
Start us off, Matt.
Well, let's go with some of the local, actual, real sport news, which is the Patriots signing a very team-friendly contract and getting Cam Newton as their quarterback. That's big news.
That's huge. That is huge.
And I know, and so Daryl, you're the Patriot fan here.
Yes.
Joe and I.
Yes, I think my first Patriots game was over 50 years ago. Played at Fenway Park when they were the New England. Maybe they were the Boston Patriots then. I don't remember. But my uncle took me. It was freezing cold, and all I remember, I was like 14 or something. All I remember is after every play was over, looking around, and it was all mostly men in the audience, and every man reached into their pocket, pulled out a flask, and took a hit.
So, if we get into it, Cam Newton he's a Patriot. He's going to be their
1 year prove it deal.
1 year. Now, I think this is the deeper issue that we can discuss for a few minutes. Is what his contract looks like. So
he's like the 35th highest paid quarterback or something, or maybe even lower.
I don't know those numbers. He basically signed a $1 million contract that is very, very incentive driven. He can earn up to just over 6.5, I believe.
I heard 7.5 total. Yeah, so 6.5 in addition to the $1 million, right? Which would put him sort of in the
pretty low on the scale, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
and so.
But he's also damaged goods.
Well, it's interesting. There were some Richard Sherman and some other NFL, personalities. People who are outspoken in the media came out and said this is an awful contract. But it's the only one he was given.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Patriots ever expected to sign Newton, and so why didn't anyone else sign him?
So I think the big part, the challenge with signing a Cam Newton now is what makes Cam Newton phenomenal. What makes him, what sets him apart from everybody is his physical attributes, his speed, his elusiveness, his.
Well, he's big too. He's linebacker size.
Running, right? He's linebacker size, and when his legs are gone, he's average at best, but pocket passer. He can throw the ball. He's got arm strength, but he's not gonna tear it up just sitting back there in the pocket. So, because of COVID, and you're not able to do your independent doctors doing all their exams, a lot of teams were saying, how I can't offer this guy a roster spot if I don't know he's healthy. And a healthy Cam Newton helps my team win, but a Cam Newton on the IR does nothing.
All right, so let me ask you two non-Patriot fans to give me your opinion on this signing, and then I'll tell you the truth.
I'm terrified as a Jet. I mean,
did you say Jets? Are they still in the NFL?
Technically, I believe they're still allowing them to compete, and I'm using "compete" very loosely here. But I mean, there was
how many wins are you predicting for the Jets this year? 3, 5, or 7?
2, 3. That's my standard. 2,
okay.
4, and I love the amusing optimism among most Jet fans. This is the year we're good. 10-6, 11-5. No, we're not till new ownership and new a lot of things. But the rest of the league, breathed a giant sigh of relief when Mr. Brady went to Tampa.
Yep.
And that is pretty much that sense of relief is more or less gone, I think, because Cam Newton's 31 years old, and he might be a little damaged, but he's a 31-year-old, very, very talented, very, very smart quarterback. And
I think what you're indicating, Joe, too, is that for quarterbacks, 31, 32 is not real old. For a running back, you're done usually,
right?
But not quarterbacks.
Right, and like Matt said, his style of play is a little bit, puts him in some risky situations. But I think the you always get a little extra nervous when Belichick brings somebody in, even if they've been a problem or their performance has been diminished somewhere else. He's going to get the most that anyone can get out of that guy, and I they've got a really good guy in the wings in Stidham, so I think they get a couple of years out of Cam Newton. That's really all they need. And
I think they'll probably only get one, but they'll have Josh McDaniels is a great play caller. So,
and they'll give him one, but if they go 12-4 this year and win another Super Bowl with him, I'm pretty sure he'll be back.
Yeah. Okay. So
when I saw that, I said, "Here we go again." Here's Bill Belichick is
when he looks like he's down.
He's known for taking players that he can't stop that he can't figure out.
Interesting.
He gets
You're
them
right.
on his roster, and then they dominate.
Right. Amendola and Welker were both examples
right.
of that.
Wes Welker, he was with the Dolphins, and he was a decent player,
Right.
but Bill Belichick couldn't scheme to stop Wes Welker, so he brings him in, and Wes Welker, if you just took Wes Welker's Patriot career, you could say, is he a Hall of Famer? Like, look at those numbers he was putting up.
Right.
Cam Newton was 2-0 against the Patriots. Bill Belichick could not scheme against him. So what does Bill Belichick do? He signs a former MVP.
Right, and only
Like
5
Joe
years
said,
ago, not like
31 years of age.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, like you know, Cam Newton is such a transcendent talent, that hybrid, really, you know, he can throw the ball and he can run the ball. So I think he's an older 31-year-old in NFL years based on what his talent, his skill set is. But he's still 31. He's got, I think, if he's healthy, he's got, you know, 3 years.
He battled for people that don't follow sports that
And
closely.
so,
He followed.
Here we go again.
Yeah,
Belichick.
he had injury issues the last 2 years.
Yes.
A left
So he's
frank
been out,
fracture,
and
whatever that
that's the
is.
question mark.
Yeah, and
But it's risk reward.
Yeah.
If this doesn't pan out,
right,
Bill Belichick got this guy for nothing,
right,
and it's incentive laden. So if he's hurt, you're not paying those incentives
Right.
because he's not going to reach those, you know, those benchmarks on his contract. You got this guy for nothing, and he's
Right.
going to win you games if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, Plan B, we had Stidham was our guy to begin
right.
with. So
And we were
here
looking
go
at,
again.
you know, for me, it was like it was a breath of fresh air that I was not expecting, because I had pretty well, like Joe said before we got on the air, that, you know, the Patriots look like a 6-9 team this year or something like that, which would be crazy unusual for them. But now I'd say it's the other way around. They're looking at 9 or 10 wins and certainly making the playoffs, or having a very good chance to make the playoffs.
Well, they've got everything else in place. The only thing they were lacking was when, you know, that position that number 12 left vacant.
Yeah, well, no,
Are
they
you
lost a lot on defense too, though. They did. You know, this whole procedure that Belichick does develops players like this guy Trent Brown. He was doing nothing for the 49ers. They move him here, and he becomes an all-pro player. And then when it's time for their payday, they have to go somewhere else to get paid.
Right, that's the thing. The pattern with Belichick is to get rid of a player a couple years too early. So when I see him bring in someone like this that the rest of the league has given up on, I'm not listening to the opinions of, you know, Stephen A. Smith and these other 29 GMs who haven't won anything. I'm listening to the guy who's won 5 Super Bowls in the last, 10, 12 years. It's
Yeah,
been.
yeah.
He definitely is smarter than all of us. So, you know, he knows what he's doing.
What was it Yogi Bear used to say? Smarter than the average bear?
This makes so much sense, because if it works, you have again a former MVP. He brought his team to a Super Bowl. The dude can play ball, and you got him for nothing. There are backups in the NFL who make more money than Cam Newton.
Right.
And so
They don't have the same
work out,
upside that
he's
Newton
hurt.
has.
If he's hurt, we tried. We you know, here we go again. The Patriots outsmart everybody. And just when you think, yay, I get to see another team in the AFC be successful, no matter who it is, it's like, nope, there we go. The Patriots. So Bill Belichick figured out a way, and you know,
and
good
so
for them.
good for him. So now NFL is right now they're having a debate. The players don't want to play any preseason games, which is kind of interesting. And owners had cut it down to 2. Preseason games were the biggest ripoff. They made the season ticket holders pay for those games full price, and those games are just worthless to watch.
I think what it does do, and what's going to happen if they cut they're down to 2 this year. If they cut those, what you're going to see is a lot of really sloppy football in the first few weeks of the season. I think that's the advantage to it. There's some things you just can't simulate on a practice field against your own guys. Some things you just don't want to do against your own guys. So I think what's going to happen, Daryl, you're right. I fully expect them to cut those 2 games. If, and this is a big if, that's if there's a season. That's if we have any seasons.
Okay, so that's a bigger question. And so if you, like, football is often the future. So for them not to play, that means that something happened with baseball, basketball, hockey. Is that what you're predicting, Joe?
I mean, I don't think it's even a prediction at this point. We're seeing lots of NBA players testing positive before they even get to Orlando.
I think it was a small percent. I think it was 30 out of 500 or something.
I think it was 5%.
Yeah.
And that's, that's a small percentage compared to, what the word pandemic makes us think. But that's a lot of people if you're going to put them in a small space. And these are, when you have a basketball team playing against another basketball team, that's 24 guys who are sweating on each other, spitting on each other. If you have one infected player on a court with 9 others active and, the rosters are 17, so you're talking about 34 people. That's going to spread. And then, the nature of professional sports, you're in different groups multiple times a week. So this is, I feel like you're worried.
You're worried.
I hate to say this because I miss the competition, but I don't realistically expect the basketball season to resume, the hockey season to resume. I don't expect baseball until 2021.
Joe, you're talking us out of a show, man. We're going to have to go on furlough.
We'll go back to politics. There's plenty to talk about over there. But it just seems unwise to me, even from leave fans out of it. Just gathering players together in these environments, and they can take all these extra precautions and keep people separated and try and keep the bubbles safe. But it just doesn't sound like.
Matt, I'm sorry I invited Dr. Doom onto the show, man.
No, I think it's great. I think it's a great viewpoint, and I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are, Joe, on this. But I think to bring it back to football, I think football is in a unique spot. They're lucky because they're going to sit back and they're going to see all these other leagues do it, and they're all doing it different ways. So football is going to be able to take the best idea from each league and make it their own, I think. I actually think basketball has the best chance. I think they have a good chance of staying healthy, and here's why. I think they're doing the testing now. I actually just read, I think all the Celtics have all of their tests. They actually have a healthy and full roster that
they have a few that tested positive. They're not saying who they are, but they had a few.
But they're
players.
able to bring a full healthy roster as of now.
Yeah.
So if you're testing these guys now, they're going to be quarantined and self-isolated and have to have, I believe, 3 clean tests before they're allowed into the bubble. And the idea is if you're only bringing healthy people into this bubble, the virus is going to have to come from somewhere. It's not, it can't just, it's not going to evolve in my own body. It would have to come from somewhere. So it would have to be brought into the bubble. And if you're bringing all these healthy athletes into the bubble and continuing with consistent testing, I mean, if we look back at how the NBA kind of was the trendsetter and all this from the beginning, back in March. Right? Rudy Gobert tested positive, and this was before any precautions were put into play. And I could be mistaken on this, but I believe only one other person on the
Donovan Mitchell, right?
On the job, yes. So there were only 2 Jazz players that did test positive at the time, where no precautions were done. Rudy Gobert was actually being kind of a jerk about the whole thing, if you remember.
Licking microphones,
spitting on microphones, making he at the time, I don't think anybody knew the severity of it all.
Right.
So he was taking this very lightly, and so I'm going to be optimistic and say, if somebody does come into this bubble who's sick, they'll be able to spot it, contact tracing, and I think they'll be able to contain it. The problem now, I'm not optimistic that the quality of play is going to be great in the NBA.
Right.
But I think it'll be a season, and I think the NBA will be able to get it done. I think baseball, you're kind of, baseball's so socially distanced kind of anyway. Baseball, I don't know. I don't, baseball I'm kind of negative on right now. I'm trying to
in which way? I mean, you don't think it's going to work?
I'm disgusted by baseball with how I'm turned off with how they were able to kind of come to an agreement on things.
Well, they didn't come to an agreement. They didn't, and the commissioner had the right to say, "Okay, we'll do a 60-game season."
Yeah. The labor situation in baseball has been a mess for about 7 or 8 CBA negotiations now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Matt, I am 100% in agreement that I feel like the NBA has the best chance to complete something. They were closest to the end of their season. I really wish they hadn't included the extra 6 teams, because then you're talking about 16 teams and 8 of them are going to go home after a week or two. So I feel like adding the extra teams and trying to play those last 8 games of the season that may be a somewhat foolish decision. I just feel like we don't know enough about this disease, about the COVID at this point to confidently make any of these decisions, and things keep changing. Well, the big tragedy in the beginning was that all these asymptomatic people were spreading this thing around without knowing it. So, I think with the testing regimen that the NBA has in place, hopefully they'll catch everybody before they are contagious. But who knows? There's going to be a 24-hour period in there where you got one good test and then you somehow get infected, and they're being a little loose too with the Disney personnel's access to the area and how they're going to be able to come and go. Those people aren't going to be in the same bubble that the NBA personnel are. So
right, and then they're going to be interacting in some regard with the players.
Right.
The other X factor is, okay, so you are what is Jason Tatum, like 20 maybe or something like that? So you're 20, 22, 24, basically a millionaire, and you're being told you have to stay in your room. And it's like the temptation, hopefully they all bite the bullet and agree to do it. But man, the temptation of well-to-do, single, people in the peak of physical health, of them sitting and watching Masterpiece Theater at night is, that's one thing I kind of worry about.
Well, there are players, backing out. Victor Oladipo was the latest yesterday. He said he's not coming back to resume the season. And, some players, it may be for fear of contracting the disease. Some the country's in crisis. Some people just want to stay home with their families.
Yeah, that's right.
It's definitely going to be a bit of a, social shock, let's say, for some of these players. But it's what to win a championship, you're always making sacrifices anyway. And I believe it was LeBron James who actually said once the playoffs start in seasons past, he throws his phone away. He doesn't want to be distracted by Twitter and the Facebook and Instagram, and he doesn't want to get the distractions because playoff time is different than regular season. And so, I think, and there's a reason why he went to 8 championships in a row. So I think this is just this is the sacrifice that players are going to have to make. Daryl, I agree with you. It's not going to be easy to have any athlete. You're down in Florida, in Disney. Yes, stay in your hotel room. Don't talk to anybody. Don't, interact with people. It is going to be hard. But if you want to win a championship, if you want to stay healthy, that's the sacrifice you're going to have to deal with for a little while. And I respect the people who like you said, Victor Oladipo, I don't know his reasons or motives for not wanting to go down.
I think for him, he's recovering from a serious injury, and he just doesn't feel he's all the way back. And Orlando's not going anywhere, so.
Yeah, so I mean, I respect if you don't want to go down and be part of this, that's your choice. Then that. Well, it is what it is, I guess. This is an unprecedented year, and I think the sacrifices some of these guys are going to have to make is unprecedented, and hopefully they'll never have to do it again.
So I have a hypothetical for the two of you who have families of your own. If you were one of these players, would you take your family to Orlando, or would you leave them back home?
I think they're being forced to leave them home, and in the beginning, because they want to keep the numbers down. Now, I don't know if that'll change when the playoffs start.
That's until they get down to 16. That's only as far as I understood.
Well, listen, let's take a little break, and we then we'll answer that hypothetical. So one of the things that's impressed me is that, and I'm thinking NBA and actually NFL too, to a degree, is a social awareness that these organizations are showing. And so the NFL has said that they're going to be playing this song called Lift Every Voice and Sing. And so for our musical break, we're going to play Beyonce doing that, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. The great Beyonce. So there you go. That's Lift Every Voice and Sing. All right, so when we stopped, Joe asked us a hypothetical. And, man, so you're assuming, Matt and I are assuming we're a professional level athlete. Man.
I'm not. I'd be okay if I'm a player in the NBA and I have a legit shot at winning a championship and I'm, a impactful player on the roster. I'm comfortable going without my family.
Yeah, I think I'd come down in that side too.
I just, today's age with the FaceTime and, we're doing a radio show on Zoom right now, and so I would be comfortable with that. I wouldn't want to bring my family there because, if I'm bringing my family there, they have to stay isolated in the hotel room. It's not like they can go out and go to Disney, and that would be dangerous to bring a disease into the bubble.
Is Disney going to be open, the rides and everything?
I don't think so.
Initially, they had planned on trying to start to open during the month of July, but I know that's been pushed back.
Because of Florida's issues.
Yeah, and I think there will be Disney personnel on site, but I think the ones that are supporting the NBA season will be separate from the ones that are working on the reopening of the park.
Okay. Now, Joe, would you bring your family?
I don't think I would bring my family. I don't think I would be going as a player. I think.
Interesting. Why? Why wouldn't you go?
I think I'm
pre-existing conditions like I have.
Well, yeah. I mean, if we want to talk personally, I mean, I'm diabetic. I have high blood pressure. I'm in all the risk groups. I actually had I had the virus. I was sick for about 6 weeks. I was really bad for about 2, and it's been. I would say I started to feel symptoms about the middle of March, and I am still wiped out all the time, sleeping 8, 10, 12 hours a day. This is not something you want to have, especially...
Now, are you sure it's corona?
I am 100% positive. I'm actually going for a antibody test next week.
Okay.
But when I first started to have symptoms, you couldn't get a test out here in Portland. So by the time tests were available, I was 100% sure just from talking to other people who have had it.
Wow.
But it's a
man, I hope you recover totally from it. I know that there's some issues that persist apparently with this disease.
Well, and that's the thing. Like I said earlier, we really don't know anything about this thing. We know what we think we know, but even that seems to change week to week, month to month. But having lived through it, I wouldn't want to impose this on anyone else. And we really, we have to ask what this is really for. And I think this is the answer that you could apply to similar questions in professional sports for the last 50 years, maybe longer, and it's money. And if you want an illustration of that, let's look at baseball, our favorite whipping boy baseball. But they canceled the minor league season because, and hang on, I've got these numbers up. Minor league revenue for it's about 4,000 players, 160 teams, $864 million. Major League Baseball, we're talking about 30 teams, 750 players, and they brought in $10 billion. So it's very clear why they said, let's leave the minor leaguers home, let's not put them at risk, but let's get the major leaguers out here because they make us money.
Yeah.
Well, let's continuing on the track of money, let's shift gears a little bit to the Washington Redskins.
Now, wait a minute. That's not money. That's for them.
It is.
Actually, excuse me. You're totally right. You're totally right. Because it's the branding, the name recognition of.
So.
And then you're right, Joe, too. Right. So let's just give it a little background. So for many, many years, many people have been offended by the name Redskins. And if you do study into it, it was a name that became very derogatory.
Right. So for years, people have been pressuring the Redskins and their owner, Daniel Snyder, to change the name. And Daniel Snyder has stood firm. Nope, not changing it.
Money, like Joe said, money.
So now money gets in the way, and
but it hadn't before. It was losing money if he had changed the name for the Redskins. FedEx changed that.
FedEx, who I don't have the numbers off the top of my head right now, but they're the name on the.
They bought the naming right for many millions.
Multi-million-dollar contract. They have requested that the Redskins not consider changing the name, but they have requested that they do change the name. And Nike has pulled all Washington Redskin apparel off of their.
Is that true, or is that just a rumor?
No, that's
it's true.
That's what I read, is that Nike has pulled all Redskins apparel off of their online shopping platforms. And so now the Washington Redskins are going to do a thorough, I think they called it, did they call it an investigation or a thorough
review?
look.
I think was the
Review,
word.
I think was,
Yes.
yeah.
A thorough review of the name and possible name changes.
All right. Now, Joe came up with a few witty ones. You want to give us a few examples of the Redskins' new name?
Yeah, I just thought if they wanted to reflect the character of the city that they call home, I had a couple ideas. The gerrymanderers, the oligarchs, the bandits. I thought was a nice simple one that actually would go both ways. And then, of course, the old white dudes. The why does everyone wear the same suit skins? If you want to keep a little bit of the old tradition, it always baffled me about Washington. Everybody wears the exact same suit
With a
I feel
red
if
tie.
somebody showed-
yeah.
Well, that's true. When Obama showed up one time in a white suit, people are still writing articles about it. So.
Oh, this man's dude.
Yeah.
Dude, that was not okay.
But in all seriousness, I think there are some good suggestions. The best one I think I've heard was the Red Tails, which is
I
to
think
honor
I
the
heard that one
Tuskegee
last
Airmen.
night too. And it keeps
Yeah.
the red and what was its connection with history? The Red Tails.
The Tuskegee Airmen. It was a nickname for the Tuskegee Airmen.
Ah,
So if you're going to
cool.
sort of go completely in the other direction with it, and I think you're both right in that it's not just money that's leading to this decision. It's 2020. Things are happening really quickly, and I know, Daryl, you and I had many conversations about the sort of impending revolution that we saw 10, 20 years ago. I feel like things are finally moving to where we're going to see a lot of changes. If this had all happened last year, think about, I don't want to pull us too far off of sports into politics here, but if all this stuff had happened last year, the Democratic nominee would be a very different person from who we have out there right now. I feel like people would have been open to a much more progressive candidate had all this happened earlier.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting time, and I think that any change in society comes from people demanding that change, and so I find it a very positive thing that people are speaking up right now, and that I think the biggest change is that white people, like the three of us, as a group, are recognizing that systemic racism is real. And, we sort of paid lip service to it before, but this is different now. This is really pushing us in a good way.
I think there's a little bit of change in the conversation about it too. Now, as white people, when we talk about this kind of thing, where it seems like there's a little more freedom and acknowledgement that we are, as progressive as we may think we are, that we are part of the system and part of the problem. And I think there was a little bit of defensiveness about being a white person in taking any sort of civil rights position that maybe has softened a little bit, because we're allowed to kind of acknowledge our mistakes and move forward kind of all as one, I hope.
Well said.
I'd like to throw up one person's name as so that I can boo against it, and that would be the owner of the Miami Dolphins. I think his name's Ross or something. And so he, a big supporter of the current president, and he's giving money to this organization called Rise. And if you check into it, it's a little suspect. So I'm a little down on what the Dolphins owner is doing. But in general, and it's interesting. I wonder if professional football players will ever be able to speak up as honestly as professional basketball players can.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
Well, I think we're setting ourselves up. And obviously, the NBA is going to be out at the front of that. They already have been. I think the NFL, after what happened with Colin Kaepernick and the sort of delayed backlash to that, I think we can expect a little more out of the NFL. The problem is and just like the labor disputes, it's players against owners. The players are the people, they want to pull this stuff forward. The owners are a bunch of rich old white guys who are going to hold this back as well as they can.
Hold on to power.
I don't think, to your question, Daryl, I don't think moving forward the NFL players are going to have any problem talking what they want to talk about.
Good, because college football players aren't. So I hope you're right. I mean, they haven't historically, Matt. NFL players have not been outspoken about much of anything.
Who, if you could point to one person who's getting the state of Mississippi to change their state flag, who is it?
It was a college football player, yep.
Kylan Hill.
Yeah.
And so I do see a shift. I think NFL players, I think, would be smart. We talked about this a few weeks ago, Daryl, right? Like, now that there aren't sports, I would love to see organizations and teams using their massive platforms to do good. And
yes.
I can't see an NFL owner trying to silence any player right now to say you talking is going to hurt our brand.
All right. Well, listen, I'll agree with that when anybody playing for Jerry Jones speaks up, and he doesn't say anything. Then I'll believe what you're saying.
But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, like, look, what happened with Colin Kaepernick was he was pushed out of the league because he didn't conform to what the owners wanted him to do. I don't see any I could see NFL owners disagreeing with some of their players, but I don't think you're going to see any sort of blackballing.
But do you think they'll have the freedom to speak up? I don't think that, I don't think that team players on the Patriots that are paid by Kraft, and I don't think that teams on Miami or on the Cowboys, just for three example, the Jets too. Yeah. Okay, that I don't think they would suffer if they spoke up in a way that isn't true for LeBron James and professional basketball players.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, fair point. To take the Patriots, Bill Belichick doesn't want you talking about anything ever, about anything.
We're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, Bill Belichick is also. That's a fair
point. Which, by the way, we should mention very quickly that the Patriots got a pretty stiff penalty on their filming the Bengals. Yeah, they got fined $1 million or something, and they lost a third draft pick, which is not nothing. But interesting. If Cam Newton has a great year and then signs a mega contract with somebody else next year, the Patriots will get a compensatory third-round pick. So there's another thing in the can't lose with Cam Newton.
Another thing with that whole penalty, I think the Patriots are not allowed to have any film crews at all year long. They can't have any film crews filming any game. They can't be on any sideline the entire year.
They sure are racking up the organizational penalties, though, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're lapping everyone else. Now, which brings up the question, as you two not being Belichick fans, do you think of him as sort of as a Dr. No, as an arch villain type, or and did you think of his legacy as really tarnished?
It's funny, when he first started winning, he was the underdog. People love to hate the winners. And so, there's a whole lot of anti-Yankee fandom that's just out there because there has to be anti whoever's up at the top. And they have clearly been the best franchise in the game for quite some time. So I think if you look back, though, 10 or 15 years when he was hopping from Cleveland and was the Jets coach for a day and all that was happening, he wasn't, nobody hated him back then. We were maybe a little confused by him, but that sort of animosity only comes with success.
And boy, imagine if he'd stayed with the Jets. you would probably be looking at a different history over the last 20 years than you have.
I don't think he would have been as successful if he stayed with the Jets.
Interesting. Yeah.
Joe, to your point you made earlier, I believe that there are certain organizations that just can't get it right.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to knock you as a Jet fan. As a Giant fan, I feel like the Giants are trending in the wrong direction as an organization.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought they were sort of coming around.
Let's see how this Joe Judge guy pans out.
Yeah. Who's untested,
I just think there are certain organizations that can't get out of their own way, and the Jets are one of them. And so one of the reasons why the Patriots have been so successful is Kraft hasn't let his ego get in the way of football.
That's right.
Like Jerry Jones, there's a reason why once he became the GM, the Cowboys have been extremely underperforming.
Right. And he does something that Kraft's never done, which is second guess in live right after the game, second guess the coach, do that kind of stuff. I mean, you just it's very counterproductive.
Well, yeah, Kraft has realized that he's got a football genius there and has given him the reins that he's deserved, and
Belichick's not perfect either. I mean, so he makes plenty of mistakes, but he also, if he hits on Cam Newton, for example, like, Van Noy and some of the other people that he's taken chances on, Well, okay, so listen, we have about 7 minutes left. I would like to move into college and also basically local sports, of high school sports. So let's have some predictions. Okay, so Matt, you're a little more familiar with high school sports. What are the fall sports? Football and what else? Soccer?
Football and soccer. I don't think you see high school sports
at all.
Nope,
at all for the fall.
You look at the guidelines. How can you tell teachers, you've got to keep 3 to 6 feet away from all your students. Students have to wear masks all day, and you've got to keep them separate. But yeah, go play sports. You're not going to have high school sports in the fall.
You agree, Joe?
I think.
Yeah, I think what's as soon as you had one competition that one participant tested positive afterwards, we may have the start of a couple of seasons, but I can't imagine anything's going to continue that
all right,
at least through the season.
So no high school sports. Now, will that go on to the spring?
I would hope, fingers crossed, are that the arc of this disease is pointing downward enough where we can start thinking about.
What are you, in a different country than the United States? It's not pointing downwards at all. It's going. We're at new levels of infection.
It's so embarrassing to talk to friends in other countries, and
we can't fly to Europe.
I can't go to Canada or Mexico, and I could drive. I could be in Canada in 3.5 hours, except they won't let me.
And Vancouver's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've made our prediction in high school. Fall's out, spring is iffy, but hopeful. Now, what about college football? Because, again, this is taking us back to our overarching theme of money. So what about college football?
They're sure going to try.
And are they going to actually be able to pull it off? I think it's so much harder than professional football because, and I want to credit some of the historically black colleges because they've been the first colleges to call off their Morehead State and I think Howard have canceled their fall sports.
I don't think the NCAA can't survive without college football, though. We've talked about this before. I'm not optimistic that college football will start in August, but I have to think they're going to find a way and figure out a way to have. They need that revenue.
Right. I would agree, Joe. Don't you?
Well, I don't know if a 4 or 6 game season really helps. I think the revenue, a lot of the revenue comes from the bowls. So maybe if they can salvage a half a season starting in October, play through, even if they just play and they maybe eliminate some of the smaller bowls and keep the real money-making ones. But I think championships generate money. So if they can somehow figure out a way, like the NBA did, to sort of compress the end of the season, move it back a little bit. I mean, the problem with doing that with college sports is you're sort of beholden to the academic schedule. And if your campuses are closed, I can't justify having
but campuses are trying
players.
To be open. UMass is planning to accept students. So
that won't happen.
What's interesting too, UMass is allowing students, but they're also allowing professors to teach from home if they can modify their classes that way. So I don't like Matt said, I don't even.
Yeah, and I'm a teacher. I'm facing the real possibility that I may be done, that I may, because of my age and my heart situation, I may not be able to come back. So listen, we have like 2 minutes left. I want to
let me just give my opinion quick, Daryl, on the whole college thing. I think I have a friend who has a daughter who's University of North Carolina. And basically what colleges are saying, or this is how she was explaining it, is what colleges are going to be doing is they're going to do everything they can to be open, and it's up to you as the student, whether you pay for room and board, or you kind of go to the campus, or you learn from home, and there won't be any sort of reimbursement if colleges, they're going to start open, and if they have to close and shut down, there's no more reimbursement. And I agree with you, Joe, where I think it would be extremely irresponsible for a college, a university to say, well, it's not safe for our student body, but football players, we need your money, so come and play. I don't think that will happen at all. I think that's extremely irresponsible. And I haven't heard of any universities saying that. But I just think the money is too important. And even I could see them, canceling baseball and softball seasons to play football, because the long run, that's how teams, there are some universities who fund their baseball program from the money from their football program.
Right.
And so the long game of this is, without any football at all, without any money, you're looking at an entire athletic department shutting down. And so I just think it would be near impossible. Schools have lost so much money in reimbursing all their students who, when they canceled room and board and reimbursing them, they have no more money. They're totally depleted. So us
as sports fans, we sort of had this feeling that, oh man, when sports pick up, it'll be like old times again. But man, they're picking up. But it's not like old times. It's a completely different. Listen, in the last 30 seconds, I want to mention one big thing that's happened in college recruiting. And that's there's this 6'11" player, Makur. And he is down to 4 teams: UCLA, Kentucky, Memphis, and Howard. And he committed to Howard. He's a top 20 recruit. That's really pretty significant and pretty cool. So listen, thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks, Matt. And there you go. We had another sports show, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.